Tearful farewell, Menglong's final resting place in Urumqi leaves fans weeping. What kind of farewell could bring an entire city to its knees in grief? The air was heavy with sorrow as countless fans gathered for Menglong's final journey. Tears flowing like rivers in the heart of Xinjiang. It was not just a burial, it was a nation's last goodbye to a figure who had touched millions. Let's join Red Carpet Revealed to uncover the emotions, the moments, and the unforgettable scenes, right now. The streets of Urumqi had never looked like this before. Dawn had barely broken when the first groups of mourners began to gather, carrying white chrysanthemums and framed photos of the man they had loved from afar for so many years. By mid-morning, the entire city seemed draped in sorrow. Every corner was adorned with black ribbons. Candles flickered against the cold breeze, and portraits of Menglong stared back from walls, banners, and even the screens of mobile phones held tightly in trembling hands. It was not just another celebrity funeral. An event that had transformed into a collective outpouring of grief. A farewell that left not a single eye dry. What kind of farewell could move an entire nation to its knees in mourning? What kind of loss could unite strangers, young and old, in one endless tide of tears? The answer lay in the life and death of Menglong, a man whose career had transcended entertainment and who had become a symbol of hope for millions. His final resting place in Urumqi, the heart of Xinjiang, became the stage for one of the most emotional gatherings the country had ever witnessed. From the moment news of his passing broke, the world had seemed to stop. Social media crashed under the weight of tributes. Fans collapsed in disbelief, refusing to accept that the bright star who had once lit up their screens and stages could be gone so suddenly. Within hours, flowers piled up outside his residences. Vigils erupted spontaneously across cities. But it was Urumqi that became the epicenter of grief. The place where thousands flocked to say their last goodbye. Some traveled hundreds of miles, taking overnight trains and buses, determined to be present when their idol was laid to rest. They came carrying flowers, handwritten letters, and even gifts they had once hoped to deliver to him in person. Now, they could only place them by his coffin. As the day of the funeral began, the streets of Urumqi filled to overflowing. Crowds lined the procession route long before the hearse appeared. The silence was palpable, broken only by the quiet sobs of fans clutching each other's hands. When the black car finally emerged, draped with white cloth and carrying Menglong's coffin, silence shattered into waves of uncontrollable grief. Fans wailed, reaching out as though they could touch him one last time, their cries echoing down the avenues. White flowers rained onto the roof of the hearse, covering it in a blanket of petals. Inside the family cortege, relatives sat in solemn silence. His parents, devastated yet dignified, bowed their heads. Siblings clutched tissues and stared out of the windows, seeing thousands of tear-streaked faces pressing forward. But grief had become a public spectacle, yet they bore it with the quiet strength that only love could provide. In moments like these, the line between celebrity and human being disappeared. Menglong was no longer just an actor, a singer, or a star. He was a son, a brother, and above all, a man deeply loved by countless people who had never even met him. The procession moved slowly toward the cemetery gates, guarded by security but unable to contain the sheer mass of humanity pressing forward. Along the way, giant screens replayed clips of his most memorable performances, scenes from beloved dramas, snippets of his concerts, moments where his laughter filled interview halls, all of it played on a loop, reminding everyone of the brilliance they had lost. Fans fell to their knees, bowing as the hearse passed, some whispering prayers, others screaming his name into the sky. The grief was overwhelming, yet it was also strangely beautiful. Entire families wept together. Elderly men who had once marked their grandchildren for idolizing celebrities now stood with tears streaming down their faces, unable to deny the depth of the loss. Young children, too small to fully understand, cried simply because everyone around them was crying. It was as though the whole of Urumqi had become one living, breathing organism, pulsing with sorrow. In the hours leading to the burial, fans filled the open space outside the cemetery. They held vigils, lighting candles that glowed even in daylight. They sang softly, their voices trembling as they performed his most famous songs together, turning the air into a haunting chorus of remembrance. Some wrote letters and tied them to black balloons, releasing them into the sky with whispers of farewell. Others knelt silently, staring at the coffin as though hoping he might rise again. Media coverage was relentless. Yet even reporters found themselves unable to maintain composure. Some wept openly as they narrated scenes, their voices cracking with emotion. National outlets broadcast the farewell live, labeling it one of the largest public mourning ceremonies in modern entertainment history. Images of weeping fans in Xinjiang spread across the globe, drawing sympathy and shock from viewers everywhere. As the coffin was carried into the cemetery, the sound of wailing reached its peak. Fans surged forward, desperate for a last glimpse, but were held back by security. Some collapsed from the weight of their grief. Others fainted, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. The family followed closely behind, their tears flowing freely now, their grief impossible to contain. When the coffin reached its resting place, silence fell once more. The family stood in front of the grave, placing flowers, bowing deeply, whispering their final goodbyes. Religious leaders offered prayers, their chants resonating through the valley. The coffin was slowly lowered, and with it, thousands of fans fell to their knees in unison, holding the earth with their fists, crying out as though their collective sorrow could reach him beyond the grave. Some fans threw flowers and letters into the grave, last gifts for the man who had once given them so much joy. Others pressed their faces against the earth, whispering his name. The sound of sobbing was unbearable, a symphony of grief that seemed to rise to the heavens themselves. And yet, within that sorrow, there was also unity. Strangers comforted one another, holding each other close, sharing tissues and words of consolation. For a brief moment, grief transformed into solidarity, binding everyone together in their love for Menglong. The ceremony stretched on for hours, as no one wanted to leave. Even after the coffin was covered with earth and the gravestone unveiled, fans lingered, refusing to accept the finality of it all. Candles, they left gifts. They sang his songs again and again, their voices raw but unwavering. The grave itself became a shrine, covered in flowers, photos, and messages written in trembling handwriting. We will never forget you. You live forever in our hearts. Thank you for everything. As dusk approached, the cemetery glowed with thousands of candles flickering against the darkening sky. Urumqi itself seemed to hum with sorrow, as though the entire city was mourning in unison. The farewell was not just heartbreaking, it was monumental. A moment that carved itself into the memory of every person present. And yet, as the night fell, one thought lingered in every heart: this was only the beginning of Menglong's legacy. His body may rest in Urumqi. His spirit, his art, and his influence would live on forever. Night had fallen over Urumqi, yet the city refused to sleep. Even after the coffin was lowered and the final rites completed, crowds lingered at the cemetery gates, to accept that the farewell was truly over. Candles continued to flicker along the streets, their flames bending in the cold wind, one representing a soul unwilling to let go. The air was filled with a soft murmur of prayers, the hum of songs sung under trembling breaths, the occasional cry that shattered the silence and reminded everyone why they were there. Menglong had departed, yet in his departure, he had brought an entire nation to its knees in grief. Of the funeral spread across the country with lightning speed. In Beijing, thousands gathered in squares, lighting candles and projecting his image on building facades. In Shanghai, fans lined the bund, laying flowers along the riverbanks as the skyline glittered in the background. In Guangzhou, vigils filled entire stadiums, fans singing his songs in unison, their voices rising like a collective requiem. Cities far from Xinjiang, even those where Menglong had never performed, erupted into spontaneous mourning. It was as if his farewell in Urumqi had cast a shadow of grief across every corner of the nation. On social media, the wave of sorrow became overwhelming. Hashtags like "Farewell Menglong" and "Xinjiang Weeps" trended for days. Video clips of fans sobbing at the cemetery gates went viral, millions of views within hours. Images of elderly women kneeling on the ground, of young children clutching his portraits, of men openly weeping in the streets. These became symbols of a grief too powerful to be contained. Platforms were flooded with tributes, artwork, poems, letters, even songs written by fans desperate to keep his memory alive. Servers crashed under the sheer weight of uploads, but still the content poured in, unstoppable. Internationally, the story captured headlines. "China weeps, farewell to Menglong" appeared in newspapers across Europe. American networks broadcast live footage of the funeral procession, marveling at the sheer scale of mourning. South Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia, where Menglong had cultivated devoted fan bases, candlelight vigils were held in solidarity. Paris lit up the Eiffel Tower in white light for a night in tribute. New York fans gathered in Times Square, up screens replaying his most iconic performances. Farewell had crossed borders, transforming into a global moment of unity. Back in Urumqi, the days following the burial saw a steady stream of visitors. Fans traveled from every corner of the country to stand at his grave. Some knelt in silence, others sang softly, while many simply cried and left offerings, flowers, letters, jewelry, fan-made artwork. The site became a pilgrimage ground, with people lining up for hours just to touch the earth covering his coffin. Hotels near the cemetery filled to capacity. Restaurants opened their doors to grieving visitors, and the local government struggled to manage the influx. Urumqi, once known for its history and culture, now became forever tied to the name of Menglong, who rested in its soil. The family released a short statement days after the burial, thanking the public for their overwhelming love and support. They spoke of being humbled by the devotion shown to their son, brother, and loved one. Though their grief was immeasurable, they expressed comfort in knowing that he had not died alone. Millions carried him in their hearts. Their words sparked another wave of emotion online, with fans vowing to protect his legacy and honor his memory in every possible way. Memorial projects quickly emerged. Fans organized charity drives in his name, echoing the philanthropic efforts he had supported during his life. Schools and communities began to hold annual remembrance events. Documentaries were commissioned to capture the rise and fall of his life, ensuring future generations would know the story of the man who had left the world too soon. Murals of Menglong appeared on walls across China, in vibrant colors, his face immortalized as a reminder of hope, love, and resilience. For many, the symbolism of Urumqi as his final resting place carried deep meaning. Xinjiang, often viewed as distant and isolated, became the center of national grief. The mountains surrounding the cemetery stood like silent guardians, the winds carrying whispers of prayers into the endless sky. It was believed it was fitting that Menglong rested there, in a place vast and timeless, where his memory could soar without boundaries. They spoke of Urumqi as a sanctuary, a sacred space where his spirit could remain untethered, forever embraced by the love of his people. The entertainment industry, shaken by his death, in response, shows paused filming to honor him. Concerts were cancelled or transformed into tribute events, and colleagues shared memories that revealed sides of him the public had never seen. Producers described his work ethic. Stars spoke of his kindness. Assistants recounted small gestures of generosity that had never reached the headlines. In these stories, the image of Menglong deepened, not just a celebrity, but a man of character, flawed yet full of light. Presence had left lasting imprints on those around him. Even in grief, debates arose. Some argued that the outpouring was excessive, that it blurred the line between genuine mourning and hysteria. Others countered fiercely, insisting that such grief was proof of how deeply he had touched lives. He gave us hope when we had none. Fan wrote in a viral post, "How can we not weep when hope itself is taken from us?" The argument raged online, but beneath it lay one undeniable truth. Menglong had become more than a man. He was now a legend. Fans invite both worship and scrutiny. Weeks passed, but the mourning did not fade. Every day, fresh flowers appeared at his grave. Every night, candles continued to glow in cities across the country. Songs returned to the charts, soaring to the top once more, not as entertainment but as elegies. Fans streamed his dramas endlessly, comment sections with tears and tributes. For them, watching him on screen was a way of keeping him alive, a refusal to let death have the final word. Yet, despite the torrents of grief, there was also joy. Joy in remembering the laughter he had brought, the dreams he had inspired, the moments he had given that would never be erased. Fans spoke not only of sadness but of gratitude, cherishing the years they had shared with him, however brief. Farewell was heartbreaking, but it was also a celebration, a recognition that his light had been real, and that it would never truly fade. Farewell in Urumqi will be remembered as more than a funeral. A moment that united millions, that reminded the world of the fragile beauty of life and the enduring power of love. It was proof that when a person gives themselves fully to their art and their people, they achieve immortality, not in body, memory, in spirit, in the hearts of those they touched. The sun set over the mountains of Xinjiang, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson. Fans whispered their final words. Rest well, you Menglong. You will never be forgotten. Their tears fell like rain. Their voices carried like thunder, echoing across the land. His body may rest beneath the soil of Urumqi. All soared free, carried in the songs, the stories, and the endless love of his people. Menglong's final farewell was not the end. It was the beginning of a legend. The farewell in Urumqi was more than a funeral, it was a moment that froze time. A day when grief and love intertwined so powerfully that an entire nation bowed its head together. Menglong's resting place may be covered by earth. His memory now lives in the hearts of millions, carried in their songs, their tears, and their unshakable devotion. He was more than a star, he became a symbol of unity, of hope, and of the unbreakable bond between an artist and his people. Thank you for joining Red Carpet Revealed on this unforgettable journey through sorrow, remembrance, and love. Your voice, your presence, and your passion give meaning to every story we tell. Stay with us as we continue to uncover the hidden truths and emotional moments that shape the world we share. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next revelation. The red carpet has been rolled back once more, and the truth, as always, is waiting to be revealed.